Welcome to our deep dive into one of the most pivotal and intense conflicts of the 20th century, the Korean War and the division of Korea. Imagine a nation torn apart, brothers fighting against brothers, and a war that still influences global politics today. This is the story of how a peninsula, once united, became the front line of the Cold War. In the next few minutes, we'll journey back to 1945, when Korea was liberated from Japanese rule, only to be divided by the superpowers of the Cold War. We'll explore the dramatic events of the Korean War, from the surprise invasion by the North to the fierce battles and eventual stalemate. You'll see how the conflict escalated into a global crisis involving the United States, the Soviet Union, and China. We'll uncover the strategies, the heroism, and the heartbreak of a war that left millions dead and a nation divided. Stay tuned as we unravel the stories behind the headlines. From the daring Incheon landing to the brutal winter battles and the tense peace talks that finally led to an armistice, but not a peace treaty. So, join us on this fascinating journey through history as we tell the story of the Korean War and the division of Korea. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more in-depth historical explorations. Let's dive in. The Korean War, 1951-1953, is rooted in the division of Korea at the end of World War II. For decades, Korea had been a Japanese colony, but when Japan surrendered in 1945, the Korean peninsula was left in a power vacuum. The Allied powers decided to divide Korea along the 38th parallel, with the Soviet Union occupying the north and the United States occupying the south. This was initially meant to be a temporary arrangement until Korea could be reunified under an independent government. However, the Cold War soon set in, and instead of unifying the peninsula, two separate governments emerged, each claiming to be the legitimate ruler of all Korea. In the north, Kim Il-sung established the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, DPRK, with support from the Soviet Union. In the south, Syngman Rhee became the president of the Republic of Korea, ROK, backed by the United States. Tensions between the two sides escalated as both governments sought to reunify Korea under their own system's communism in the north and a capitalist democracy in the south. On June 25, 1950, North Korean forces, supported by the Soviet Union and later China, invaded South Korea, sparking the Korean War. The North Korean military quickly overran most of the south, capturing the capital, Seoul. In response, the United Nations, with the US as the primary force, intervened on behalf of South Korea. General Douglas MacArthur led a bold amphibious landing at Incheon in September 1950, which turned the tide of the war. UN forces pushed the North Koreans back, even advancing close to the Chinese border. Fearing that the US and its allies might try to eliminate North Korea entirely, China entered the war in late 1950, sending hundreds of thousands of troops to support the North. This led to a bloody stalemate, with both sides pushing back and forth across the 38th parallel. As the war dragged on, it became apparent that neither side could achieve a decisive victory. The fighting caused enormous destruction and loss of life, particularly among civilians. Peace talks began in July 1951, but it took 2 more years of brutal fighting before an armistice was signed on July 27, 1953. The armistice ended active combat, but it did not result in a peace treaty, leaving North and South Korea technically still at war. The Korean Demilitarized Zone, DMZ, was established along the 38th parallel, where it remains to this day as one of the most heavily fortified borders in the world. The war had significant long-term consequences. The Korean peninsula remained divided, with both North and South Korea focused on rebuilding their devastated countries along divergent ideological lines. The North developed into a closed, authoritarian regime under Kim Il-sung, while the South, after a period of military dictatorship, eventually became a prosperous democracy. Internationally, the Korean War was a key moment in the Cold War, intensifying the rivalry between the US and its allies on one side and the Soviet Union and China on the other. It also set the stage for future US involvement in conflicts in Asia, most notably the Vietnam War. Though often referred to as the Forgotten War in the West, the Korean War had a profound impact on global geopolitics and continues to shape the relationship between North and South Korea today.